Coming up on Arirang News. It's been a week since doctors in South Korea resigned in protest against the government's medical school quota expansion. To end this, the government has set a deadline until the end of this month for striking doctors to return to work without any punishment. President Yoon vows to lift restrictions on land protected from development near military bases for commercial use. His remarks come as he visits the Seosan Air Base, where a new airport will be built nearby. Financial authorities announced the details of their corporate value-up program to boost Korean stocks undervalued compared to their overseas peers. They include giving tax incentives to firms that improve corporate governance and values, and creating an index that tracks these companies. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the South Korean government giving an ultimatum to the doctors on a mass walkout. It's been chaos in hospitals for the last week since trainee doctors have been continuing to resign in protest of the government's medical school quota hike. To end this, the government set a deadline saying it would not hold doctors accountable if they return to their posts by Thursday, February 29th. Shin-Young leads us off.
Amid the spread of collective action against the increase in medical school enrollment quotas, the government has issued a deadline for protesting doctors to return to work.
Considering the seriousness of the situation, the government is making a final plea. If you return to the hospital you left behind by the 29th, you won't be held responsible for what has already happened.
The country's Interior Minister Lee Sang-min has also urged doctors to engage in dialogue with the government for better medical service conditions. Hospitals have been scrambling, relying on attending physicians and professors to step in to fill medical service gaps left by the mass exodus of trainee doctors that began last Tuesday. However, the healthcare crisis is poised to deepen with medical school graduates turning down intern positions. According to the Health Ministry on Monday, as of Friday, over 9,000 trainee doctors from 100 major hospitals, accounting for over 70% of all trainee doctors, have walked off their jobs, and more than 10,000 trainee doctors have submitted resignation letters. The ministry said that trainee doctors who refuse to return to work by the deadline could start facing punishment the following day.
Starting from March, according to principles in the law, it is inevitable to impose a minimum 3-month license suspension for those who do not return to work, and to proceed with related judicial measures.
In the meantime, the Korean Medical Association has called for an immediate halt to the government's expansion plan, warning of legal action. Arguing that the plan would compromise the quality of medical education, the KMA said the entire medical sector would fight using every legal means available until the end. In addition, the KMA is planning a massive rally on Yeouido on March 3rd with 20,000 doctors expected to participate. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
Moving on to policy discussions with citizens. President Yoon vows to lift restrictions on land near military bases that's protected from development for commercial use. His remarks comes as he visits the country's biggest Air Force base, the Seosan Air Base, where a new airport will be built nearby. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
The South Korean government is set to free 339 square kilometers of land for military installation protection zones for public and private development. President Yoon announced this on Monday at Seosan Air Base in Chungcheongnam-do Province, while there for a policy discussion with citizens, explaining that the government considered the demands of the public while also keeping national security in mind.
군사시설 보호구역이 처음 도입된 것은 1970년대입니다. 그때와 지금은 많은 환경이 바뀌었습니다. 전국이 급격하게 도시화가 됐고 또 기술이 발전하면서 군과 우리 안보의 구조에도 큰 변화가 있었습니다.
Around the airbase alone, which is the country's biggest Air Force base, 141 square kilometers will be freed from the military protection zone. President Yoon added that with a new airport being built in the city of Seosan and the lifting of protection zones, he hopes that the province can utilize the land to promote projects that the local government deems to be the best. The decision comes less than a week after Yoon's announcement to lift greenbelt restrictions as well. With the two development restrictions gone in the region, Yoon says he has high hopes for the region.
그동안 충남은 자동차, 디스플레이 등 우리 주력 산업을 키워왔고 자체 발광 OLED를 세계 최초로 양산해 냈습니다. 지금 충남은 아산만을 중심으로 서해안 산업 핵심 기지가 되겠다는 비전을 가지고 있습니다.
He also pledged to create industrial complexes in cities nearby. And as Chungcheongnam-do province is home to the headquarters of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, he will create a cluster for the defense industries centered in Nonsan.
지금 그 논산에 추진 중인 국방 미래 기술 연구센터 그리고 태안에 추진 중인 드론 연구개발 활주로 테스트베드 요거는 지금 사타가 진행 중인데 마무리되는 대로 신속하게 추진할 것입니다.
In addition, at the discussion were also local residents who spoke of the needs of the people living outside the capital region. For example, one resident shared her excitement over the new National Police Hospital opening in Asan, which would be open to civilians as well. In addition, parents and students requested that the local education system be improved. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the financial markets, the authorities announced the details of their corporate value-up program to boost Korean stocks undervalued compared to their overseas peers. They include giving tax incentives to firms that improve corporate governance and values and creating an index that tracks these companies. Our An Sung-jin provides the details.
Despite substantial growth of the equity market over the past 10 years, Korea is still undervalued due to inefficient capital investment. This phenomenon is known as the Korea discount. The price-to-earnings, or PE ratio, indicates whether a stock at its current market price is expensive or cheap. The price-to-book value ratio, known as the PB ratio, demonstrates the total assets minus any liabilities on a given company's account books. While both are key indicators of a company's financial stability and prospects, the figures for South Korean firms hover below the average of advanced countries. A professor says that there are a couple of reasons for this.
The ones that are cited most often is the risk from North Korea. I also have personal suspicion that because of the Korea's corporate governance system, which favors perhaps the founders' families over stockholders, that those components reduce the attractiveness of Korean stocks to foreign investors, and that accounts for much of the Korean discount.
To tackle this ongoing economic task, the government shared key details of the Value Up Corporate program at its first policy seminar on Monday. It aims to create a positive feedback loop where listed companies get a proper valuation so that investors can secure a profit and then further reinvest in the capital market. The framework includes supporting listed companies and investors and establishing a system to support the implementation of the Corporate Value Up program. The government will provide tax incentives for companies that voluntarily practice a shareholder return policy. To assist investors in assessing company performance, the government will also create the Korea Value Up Index composed of listed companies that have shown profitability or a high corporate value by September.
Today's outline is only the first step to upgrading our capital market. We will sufficiently communicate with companies and investors by providing specific details until we can get rid of the concept of Korea discount.
The government aims to concretize guidelines for the Corporate Value Up program throughout the first half of the year. The plan is a medium to long-term agenda, and further commitments and continuous reforms will be needed to effectively boost corporate value. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And in line with global efforts to ease carbon footprints, the government has shared a roadmap to green growth that includes tangible support for green startups. Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
In an emergency economic meeting held on Monday, the government revealed its plans for strengthening the country's green industry for global markets.
We will be strengthening support for the green industry by fostering 1,000 green startups by 2027.
It also aims to nurture 10 select pre-unicorn firms in the industry. Pre-unicorn companies are startups with a value of over 100 billion Korean won, or roughly $75 million. The government plans to provide step-by-step support from setting up their business to overseas expansion, including operating a green startup lab where companies can test run their technologies and products. As pre-unicorn companies are currently unable to apply for various types of support due to their comparatively lower sales, the government is aiming to supplement this. Furthermore, 10 key sectors of green businesses have been selected for concentrated support, as the government deems domestic technology in said areas to be among the world's best. These include the likes of secondary batteries, renewable energy waste, and waste plastic. In order to advance into new overseas markets, the government will be targeting specific environmental problems facing each country and offering solutions. Examples stated were proposing alternatives for safe water management policies in Southeast Asian countries and branding Seoul's resource circulation policies for South American countries that are reliant on landfill sites without recycling. Another topic area that was discussed in the meeting was furthering financial support for vulnerable groups such as small business owners that are struggling with high interest rates on their loans. By the end of next month, the government plans to come up with a specific outline for who will be able to receive support and how, such as offering rent support and returning interest paid on loans. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Japan is reportedly set to begin round 4 of its wastewater release from the Fukushima nuclear power plant on Wednesday. According to Kyodo News on Monday, Japan's Tokyo Electric Power Company will discharge about 7,800 tons of contaminated water over 17 days. Japan has disposed of approximately 23,000 tons of wastewater since the first release began in August last year. It plans to further release around 54,000 tons between this April and March 2025. The Japanese government has been guaranteeing the safety of the water release despite backlash from neighboring countries. Last week, the U.S. announced new sanctions list against Russia a day before the second anniversary of Moscow's full invasion of Ukraine. It's targeting more than 500 individuals and entities, among which is a South Korea-based firm. Our Bae-eun-ji takes a closer look at a possible impact of the sanctions.
A day before the second anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. announced on Friday more sanctions against Russia, targeting more than 500 people and entities.
That's why I'm announcing more than 500 new sanctions. In response to Putin's brutal war of conquest, in response to Alexei Navalny's death, because make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Alexei's death.
Among the 93 entities on the new sanctions list is a South Korea-based company called Daesung International Trading, located in South Korea's southeastern city of Kimhae. An official from Seoul's foreign ministry said Monday that the head of the company is a Pakistani national, and the government has shared information with the U.S. in advance. The country's trade ministry and the customs agency are also currently conducting investigations into the company to look for possible law violations. And another company run by South Korean nationals in Ireland was also added to the list. The firm, Qubit Semiconductor, was sanctioned for reportedly exporting sensitive electronic components to a Russian manufacturer. However, there are doubts about whether these sanctions will have a strong impact on Russia. One expert says the Russian economy has proven to be resilient, despite the sanctions imposed by the U.S. and European countries in the past, partly because Western countries have been hesitant, worrying that the sanctions may affect the global and regional economies.
So sanctioning the export of Russian oil to other countries might make the entire oil prices go up, which I think would also have a negative impact on the oil price management in the United States. So I think all these factors, I think if applied the same way, I don't think it will be that effective as U.S. and Western countries expect.
Another expert says imposing sanctions on more individuals and companies in countries outside of Russia is a signal to other international actors that there's a price to be paid for working with Moscow to help them evade the sanctions, but also raised doubts about their effectiveness.
So I don't think this is going to change the game. The one thing that can really change the game is getting weapons to Ukrainians immediately and getting them longer range artillery. That's the thing that will change this.
Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says 31,000 soldiers have sacrificed their lives for their country amid Russian invasion since February 2022. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Saturday marked 2 years since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began the war that's still very much ongoing. The brutal war has led to the death of many civilians, but the Ukrainian government had not released an official figure on the number of soldiers killed in action. However, on Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy held a press conference in Kyiv and said that a total of 31,000 of the country's soldiers had been killed in the war. He slammed lies by Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government that some 150 to 300,000 Ukrainian soldiers died on the battlefield. Still, the Ukrainian leader said that each death is a huge loss to the country. Both Ukraine and Russia have kept the scale of their military's troop losses confidential to prevent enemies from using the death toll for propaganda purposes. So far, major foreign media outlets have only been estimating the number of military deaths by citing internal sources. The 31,000 military deaths announced by President Zelenskyy is significantly lower than the figure claimed by Russia and the amount of Ukrainian troop losses estimated by the West. UK-based newspaper The Economist last November reported that American officials estimated that 70,000 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in action, while 120,000 were injured. The New York Times reported last August that Russian military casualties had reached 300,000, while Ukrainian military casualties reached approximately 200,000. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu claimed last month that Ukraine lost 215,000 troops in just 2023 alone. During Sunday's press briefing, Zelenskyy further called for Western support and urged the U.S. Congress to pass an additional budget for Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, at the Berlin International Film Festival this past weekend, much applause was extended to a pair of Korean directors, including Sang-soo, for his latest screen production. He won the Silver Bear Grand Jury Prize for his new film. Yoon has more.
Director Sang-soo's 31st feature film, A Traveler's Needs, premiered at the 74th Berlin International Film Festival and on Saturday won the Silver Bear Grand Jury Prize. Telling the story of a French woman, played by French actress Isabelle Huppert, who travels to Korea where she teaches a local woman to speak French. The movie highlights the themes of life's unbearable nature and the importance of communication. This is Hong's 7th time entering the Berlinale competition section and his 5th time winning the Silver Bear. 6 South Korean films were featured at this year's festival, highlighting once again the diversity and creativity of Korean cinema. In his acceptance speech, Hong thanked the jury for the prize and said he did not know what the jurors saw in his film exactly, which drew laughter from the audience. But he also expressed how he trusted working with actress Isabelle Huppert.
This might sound very, very irresponsible, but I don't know what I am doing in a way. As I said to her, I have some objective. And I have a kind of a recognized working method that I like, I have developed, and I believe in a certain, how can I say, happening between people.
Huppert has developed a unique relationship with the Korean auteur. Marking her third film with Hong, she spoke of how everything in her relationship with the director has been unscripted and by chance.
I did 2 other films with Sang-soo, and his way of making films is unique. I only know him for doing films like this, and so I was enthusiastic about repeating the experience. In fact, it's very difficult to project yourself in a story or in a role because there is no role and no story. So, and this is what I really like about it.
Also in competition at the festival was the feature directorial debut of Kim Hae-young. Her film It's Okay, about an orphaned young dancer, won the Crystal Bear for Best Film, an award given out by a jury of children in the Generation K+ section that's dedicated to coming-of-age stories. The Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Yoon, sent congratulatory messages to the 2 directors, praising this achievement as a proud moment that announces the elevated status of Korean cinema worldwide. 이은진, Arirang News.
In other news, once the eye's retina deteriorates, recovery is known to be difficult. Administering anti-inflammatory drugs directly into the eye through injections is considered the best method to delay symptoms. Yet, South Korean researchers have developed a new treatment method that can regulate the drug delivery speed, which can decrease and delay symptoms. Jung Eun-ju has the details.
As the population rapidly ages, ophthalmic diseases are increasing at an alarming rate. The number of age-related macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy patients has doubled over the past decade. Early detection is crucial, but awareness of these conditions is still significantly low. The problem is that repairing a damaged retina is difficult, making it impossible to cure currently.
Injecting drugs directly into the eye creates a psychological burden for patients, and there are obstacles in treatment. Once the drug's effect period passes, the disease may recur.
South Korean researchers have developed a new treatment method that can adjust the drug delivery speed based on the degree of inflammation within the retina. The research team first confirmed that the EZH2 inhibitor, previously used exclusively for specific malignant tumor treatments, could delay the progression of macular degeneration. They then incorporated the EZH2 inhibitor into a hyaluronic acid-based hydrogel with properties similar to the vitreous inside the eye. When this hydrogel was injected into mice suffering from macular degeneration, 94% of retinal inflammation decreased. The inclusion of an inflammation-responsive cross-linking agent also adjusted the speed at which the drug spread depending on the degree of inflammation, resulting in a 4-fold increase in the duration of drug efficacy.
By mixing hyaluronic acid components similar to those in the vitreous inside the eye, the hydrogel is more suitable for the human body. Depending on the severity of the patient's inflammatory condition, the drug will spread quickly or slowly.
The research team announced plans to conduct further research on verifying the long-term stability of the developed hydrogel and subsequent studies involving cognitive experiments in animals. Jung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
A flash of a cold snap was seen this morning. The lowest temperature in Seoul tomorrow will remain at 1 degree Celsius. In the middle of the day, it rises to 9 degrees, slightly exceeding previous year's temperatures. As the temperature swing is expected to be around 10 degrees, you should dress in layers. There will be no snowstorm news for inland areas tomorrow. On the other hand, snow clouds are gradually developing on the east coast, which is affected by the easterly winds. Up to 7 centimeters of snow will fall in the mountainous areas of the Gangwon-do province, and as much as 3 to 5 in other east coast areas. This snow will continue until dawn tomorrow. Tomorrow morning will start off in cold conditions. Chuncheon at -3 degrees, Daejeon and Daegu 0 degrees. Temperatures will jump in the middle of the day. Daejeon 10, Gwangju and Jeju 12 degrees. It is forecast to rain or snow across the country on Thursday. After the rain stops, spring frost is expected. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a good start of the week.